everyone, it's Lindsay here, and today I'm going to show you guys how to make your autumn Quaker cross stitch into a pillow using the finishing kits that we were selling. So in your kit you should have the rickrack. We did the floss in the kit, but I'm not having that pictured here. Fabric for the back, a piece of wool for the back. And the first thing that you're going to do is make sure you give your piece a nice press. I always press from the back side. And then what I like to do is mark with my ruler a 1/2 inch from the furthest stitch, and I mark with my fabric pen a line, and I do that all the way around. So a 1/2 inch on each side. Once you have that, you're going to take your piece over to your machine, your sewing machine, with your rickrack. And I'm actually I like to start and end my rickrack on the bottom because it's sometimes when you join the edges, it's a little bit visible. You can kind of see where it starts and stops, and I find that on the bottom it's less noticeable. So I'm going to start on the bottom, and I'm going to line up the heel of my rickrack with my line. And so my rickrack is on the inside of this line. If you have a needle down position, I would definitely recommend using it. It just helps when you're pivoting on the corners. And then I also like to increase my stitch length when I'm attaching the rickrack, because it's more like a basting stitch, just to keep it, just to secure the rickrack before we sew the backing on. So I'm gonna line up my presser foot. I'm doing just slightly less than a 1/4 inch in from the edge. And that's just my personal preference. Okay. So you're going to slowly, don't stretch your rickrack, don't pull on it, because then you'll get bunching. It kind of bunches anyway, but it'll bunch more if you're pulling this super tight. I just let it hang. I don't try and pull it at all. Okay, so when you're going around the corner, just slowly kind of pivot. You'll need to move your foot and line it up with your marking that you did. Okay, so I've gone around all of my edges, and I'm getting ready to meet my beginning and my end. What I like to do is I will pull where I started and kind of pull it off to the side, and then I take this part and I kind of overlap them like that. If you can see, they kind of connect. And so I pull each one so they're kind of off to the side, but they're still connected in the middle. And I'm just going to do that basting stitch, and I'm going to do a back stitch just to be safe. Actually, and then cut your thread. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just trim these tails, and just be careful you don't trim into your fabric below. Okay, so I am also going to kind of trim my excess fabric just to make it a little easier to manage over on the machine. Just gonna trim that side. And this side, we'll trim it really nicely in a minute, because what I like to do is you're going to place your backing right side up, and then your stitch right side down, so they're right sides together. And you can see my line that I've stitched here. Now we want to go just slightly inside of the line, and if you want to like use your marking pen and mark so you can see it a little bit better, I'm kind of used to it, so I can kind of eyeball it, but I'm just going to go in just a hair, like less than, I would say, 1/8 of an inch. It's very minimal. You just want to make sure you catch the rickrack, so when you turn it, you still have your valley or your hills visible. Okay, so you can also pin this into place if you don't want it to move. I keep my pieces big for a reason, so when I am sewing around it, if it does shift, I'm not going to run out of like my backing piece, and I will trim it at the end. Okay, so I'll try and show you. I have this line on my presser foot. So this is my 1/4 inch, and I am lining up this inside part of my presser foot with my stitch line. So it is very minimal in how much I'm going in. And you're just gonna do the same thing. Go all the way around and back stitch when you get back to the end. When you're doing your corner, just take it slow, pivot, and you'll need to move your presser foot up a few times. So I'm just going to continue to go all the way around, and then we will trim off our fabric. Okay, I've stitched all the way around, I've back stitched where I started, and now I'm going to use my ruler and rotary cutter to trim about 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch away from my outer like sew line. You could use scissors if you want to. I just prefer using the rotary cutter. And it doesn't have to be perfect because this is just the inside. But just make sure it's at least, you're leaving at least 1/4 inch. And I'm actually gonna just round my edge really quick. Scissors. Okay, so now we want to turn it right side out, and we're going to do that by separating our front and our back. Make sure it is completely separated. You do not want to cut into your project. That would be disastrous. So please just double check, triple check before you cut into your backing. I kind of make an X when I cut. And then I'm gonna pull it right side out, and this can take some time because I don't like to make my hole very big because we are gonna put the wool over the hole later, but I just prefer my hole to be a little bit smaller. I have turned it right side out, and it's helpful to kind of, you can gently, I mean, you don't need to use much force, pull out your rickrack a little bit, and then you can do another quick press. This is optional. I never press the front, and if I feel like I need to, I'll put something over it. So now we're ready to fill, and I like to fill my cross stitch with a combination of poly pellets and poly fill. So we have these in the shop for purchase, and they have this cool nozzle that you just, so you don't even need to get a funnel if you don't want to. And I'm gonna start filling. I actually fill it quite a bit with the poly pellets first. I like to have it nice and weighted, and the poly pellets fill in the corners nicely. So, and you're not getting like bumps. If you just use polyfill, you can sometimes see lumps in the pillow. But this way, if you fill it with polyfill first, the pellets are going to go to the front and the polyfill is in the back. So I have found it is my favorite way of filling a pillow. Let me just see where I'm at. Do a little bit more. And the poly pellets give it some weight, so it can sit nicely in your display, however you're gonna display your piece. Okay, I feel like that's good. Now I'm gonna take my polyfill, and before, if you were just gonna do it with polyfill, I would like really fluff this a lot so I didn't have the bulk. But since this is just gonna be seen on the back, I don't feel like I need to do it as much. And I go and do my corners first. And however full you like your pillows is a personal preference. I like mine pretty full, not like bursting at the seams, but just nice and taut. So I'm just gonna kind of see where I'm at, and I definitely need to fill it a little bit more in my personal preference. And I'm gonna do the middle just a little bit more. So now, once you have it to your desired fullness, I'm gonna bring it and I'm gonna just take a look and see how I like it, see the feel of it. And then what you'll do is you'll grab your wool, and you don't have to use pinking shears. I just like the look of pinking shears, and I wouldn't eyeball it because I always do it crooked. So make a mark of how big you want your square. It needs to be big enough to cover it. I am gonna eyeball it for this demonstration, just so you know if it's crooked. I'm just warning you now. And I'm just gonna trim this. And we have these pinking shears in the shop. They're definitely worth the investment. Okay, so yep, see how crooked that is? I'm just gonna, okay. So I'm gonna put this on top, and then what you'll do is you'll thread a needle and thread, and you can do a coordinating color of this, or you could do a contrasting. You can do a blanket stitch all the way around to attach this to the back, or you can do a running stitch, or I have even hot glued mine to the back if that's your jam too. You can also like add buttons or whatever you want, embellishments for the back. It's just fun to make the back cute like the front. And there you have your pillow. Thanks for joining us.